Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome. It is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. This is the regular meeting of the Aspen Pitkin County Housing Authority. First item on the agenda is a roll call.
Okay. Scott.
Present.
Kelly.
Here, present.
Carson.
Here.
John.
Here.
And Jeff.
Here.
Jeffrey.
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 Excuse me.
Also here.
I apologize. It even says Jeffrey right in front.
I can tell you his
I'm
middle
so
name
sorry.
if he's in trouble.
Okay, next item, agenda amendments. I have had one request just to move the regulation changes and overview to accommodate schedules. Do we want to do that after public comment, or is that after consent calendar? What is?
After consent calendar is fine.
Is it? Okay. So let's do that. We'll do it after consent calendar. Any other amendments? Okay. We have to vote on that, Cindy,
I don't think so. I think you just have to note it.
because we're just moving the order.
Right.
We're not adding or
We're
subtracting
not adding
anything.
anything.
Okay. Very good. We will move now to public comment. Is there anyone? I don't see anyone in the room with public comment. Is there anyone online that would like to make public comment?
We've got Tom and Liz and
For some reason I can't see the.
So who's on Zoom?
Tom, Liz, and Meg.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone with public comment in the room or online, so we will close public comment and go to Board of Directors comments. And we don't have anybody online today, so we'll start. Welcome, Jeffrey. Welcome to the board. Did you have any comments today? Okay. John.
No comments today. Well, I will make one comment. Kelly, we'll miss you.
Thank you. I'll miss you.
Scott.
You stole my thunder. Yeah, I was just going to say congratulations to Kelly on the new gig, and the Valley was lucky to have you for as long as we did, and Vermont's lucky to have you now, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Are you my phone?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what a bittersweet day. The APCHA board, probably more than any other board I've served on, has challenged me and taught me a lot, and has, I think, caused me to grow into being a better person, a better public servant. You know, we've done a lot over the years. I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished on this board. I'm proud of bringing Matthew on as director. I'm proud of the work we've done in the Capital Reserves program, and we've moved forward what is a rare consensus between the county and the city and the APCHA board, recognizing that capital reserves are a critical project to be working on, and we have a lot to show for it. I'm proud of the work we've done on this board to increase transparency to the public and accessibility by the public to this board, to the regulations, to the processes for qualifying for the program, holding the program accountable, improving the program and its inventory. I'm proud of the work we've done to expand language access to make the program more accessible for our Spanish speakers in our community, for the changes we made to the rules to allow undocumented residents to access the inventory and be able to live in APCHA housing. I'm proud to have lived in APCHA housing for just about most of the time, 13 years I've lived in Aspen and Pitkin County. I think all but one were in APCHA properties. I'm proud of the work we've done to focus on policy and move our kind of legal cases into what I think is a better process for due process for the complainants, as well as makes our work, I think, more efficient and focused. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of the things that we have done. I am moving to a community that has housing challenges. Housing is one of their top 3 city goals, with a goal of generating 1,500 units in the next 20 years. And so I will undoubtedly bring everything I've learned from this program and from the housing work we've all done together in the community over to that city, and glad that they will have the benefit of the things we may have tried and learned from. And yeah, and I think that some of the challenges that this board has faced, that I've faced personally with some of the actions on this board over the years, have really taught me a lot of grace and showed me why taking the higher road is always the best path and something to be proud of in really challenging moments. And I will always carry that with me. And I'm grateful to all of you for continuing on with this great work. We have an application open for anyone who lives in Commissioner District 2 and qualifies to be a county commissioner. You can apply on that form, and the commissioners will conduct interviews in February and then make an appointment, I think, at the end of February for a new commissioner to fill my vacancy until next January, the first meeting in March. And then that board will decide who will join Jeffrey on the APCHA board. I think as of now, Jeffrey will remain as the alternate until the new group of 5 can decide who will serve from the county as both the regular and alternate positions on this board. And I wish you all well and Godspeed in all of your work ahead. It's been great accomplishments thus far, and I have full faith of more success to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I mean, I would just echo those. I mean, I'm definitely going to miss you. Just your knowledge, Colorado legislature, city, county, just sort of government, the way everything works. I always feel like you can take a really complex issue and you can boil it down to what everybody's thinking, but maybe hasn't found the right words to say. I appreciate just how calm you are when we're dealing with very, very passionate circumstances, usually. And, you just have the ability to sort of take a step back and just remain very calm and sort of, just kind of cool the temperature down when things get hot. So I will certainly miss you, and, the list of accomplishments that you rattled off there, it's impressive. Mm-hmm. And, I have no doubt you'll be successful. Again, bittersweet. Yeah. Congratulations. Sorry to lose you, but happy for your new opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so we will move to the...
I will say one more. I may get up in the middle of the meeting and slice cake and hand it out to everyone, if everyone would like a piece of cake.
Noted. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on next. Matthew, Executive Director, updates.
Matthew Gillen, Executive Director. Kelly, on behalf of the staff, I'd like to extend our great gratitude to you as well. We've really enjoyed working with you. Yeah, it's always been great and a lot of fun. And we've as you rattled off, I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. that's great stuff. So thank you very much for that. I just have a couple things today. We are scheduling the next HOA class in February, but we don't have the time and place yet. We're having a little bit more difficulty tracking down a venue, and we're trying to do it at a different time. So we are going to be doing that in about a month, but we don't have it yet. I also just wanted to flag the Housing Matters columns. It was my column in December, which was kind of some highlights from the year, but I think Jackie's column last week about compliance was great. Mm-hmm. And I also want to shout out, if she's listening, to Carolyn Zachariason from the city, who Jackie would be the first to admit Carolyn was very helpful with that, because Jackie has a very legal style, and we managed to turn it into a much more friendly, much more approachable style. So it was a team effort, but I think the product was great. So thank you to Jackie and Carolyn for that, and I think that's an important message to get across. I also wanted just to highlight also the work of Tom Snyder, the hearing officer. We had 2 grievances over the holidays, and because they were grievances and not regular cases, I was able to share the results with you. And I think that gives you a good indication of the quality of his work and also how quickly he turned both of those cases around, which is, I know, something the board was looking for. So just wanted to highlight that. And I haven't had any feedback on when you guys get a message to the APCHA board group chat, and then I jump in with specifics. So I'm assuming that is working well. If anybody wants to do something differently or doesn't like the way I'm handling it, like we had one today where I just explained the rules and said, hey, you're welcome to come to the meeting. So, you know, I'm just going to carry on until you tell me something differently, because that is technically addressed to you guys. But then when it's about a case, I'm using my judgment to say, hey, you know, this is the path forward for you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Cindy.
Just a reminder that we have, right now we have 1 unit available for sale. It's at Soapers Creek. It's Soapers Creek Cabins down in the Emma area. And we will have more coming up later on in the year. And we still have some rental units out there for rent. So please check our, sign up for notifications and submit interest for those. Because when we get some of them filled, then somebody leaves, and then we still have to fill some more. So we're getting things filled. It's just we have some people whose lives have changed a little bit, and they're moving out of the area. So.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. All right, moving along to the consent calendar. 1 item, minutes of December 10th, 2025, regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from John,
Second.
second from Kelly. Any discussion, changes? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote.
Okay. Scott,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Carson,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is the change in the agenda here. We're going to move up the regulation changes overview from Bethany.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to page 19 of the packet tonight, and Karen's going to put that up on the screen for any of you at home to look at. So both during the January meeting and the February meeting, we will be bringing some proposed regulation changes to you all. These are just a time for for conversation. This is not a first or a second reading. This is just whether you're interested in having these go towards a first reading. So the first one that we staff is presenting is the change to unit appreciation and rental increase calculations for APCHA ownership and rental units. Staff's proposing to move to a flat 3% simple appreciation. Currently, most deed restrictions are 3% or CPI, whichever is less. And staff is proposing to go to a flat 3% simple appreciation. This does align with other programs such as the West Mountain Regional Housing and some Summit County units. The flat 3% is a much more consistent appreciation schedule for homeowners and something that they can understand and calculate out in advance. We can never predict a value for a unit. Some other challenges we've recently had is with the government shutdown last fall. CPI wasn't published for almost 3 months. And so there's a lot of, not knowing what's going to happen. Pre-pandemic rates were certainly more stable, between 2 and 3%. Since the pandemic, since 2020, the rates were much higher until this recent year, which dropped back down to right under 3%. In order to, to get at this flat 3%, you would have to sign a new deed restriction, just because the deed restrictions are what talks to the appreciation. Emily has wonderfully done some data for you all that's on the paragraph that Karen has on the screen right now, which shows that there's about 59 units that APCHA assumes would not adopt the updated deed restriction, as they have a higher appreciation schedule right now. Most of those are 6%, or some are 6% and CPI. There's also some units out there that are at a flat 4%, such as the North 40. Those likely would not take advantage of this. But we do think the 3% provides consistency with the appreciation schedule. It's simple appreciation still. It provides it provides our homeowners and our renters with an understanding of what's going to happen from year to year. Certainly our renters who are left wondering what the CPI will be, as APCHA can update the rental rates every year at CPI or 3%. Cindy, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
It's honestly, we get a lot of people who ask us, well, what is my appreciation, or what is my maximum value going to be in 2 months? We can't tell them that. This way, you tell somebody you bought it for this, you take it times 3%, you divide that by 12, that's your monthly increase every month. So people can figure that out 2 months or a year in advance, or 6 months in advance if they need to. So I think it's an easier mechanism that people really know what's going on with their units. I was kind of surprised because I checked CPI every single month when it didn't come out. And it never came out that month, and it did affect people's properties by they appreciate that their maximum price went down. This way, it's people have a better comfort level on it. And with regards to rental prices, we have a lot of landlords out there who always want to know, well, what is it going to be this year? What is it going to be next year, or whatever? This kind of will help that as well with some of the other landlords of deed restricted properties.
And if Karen slides down for me just a little bit, Emily ran some numbers just so that we can see what the 3% increase would be over the next 5 years. Well, up to 2030, yes, so just about 5 years. We obviously can't predict what would happen if it would be CPI, so it's a little bit of an interesting chart. I have nothing to show you for what a CPI increase would do or
Real quick,
decrease.
the
Yeah.
CPI we use, is that like a Denver CPI, or is it Pitkin County or national?
It's one that's been used since the late 1970s, and it is defined in our regulations, and I cannot remember what it is.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm in there right
it is
now.
a national one.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just gonna say, we can't predict what CPI would be over the next 5 years, but this is what a 3% increase over the next 5 years would look like for, these certain priced homes. Again, I can't tell you what CPI would do. So it's a little bit of a more just so you can see what the flat 3% would look like. We're happy to answer any questions, provide more detail, and then you all can let us know whether you'd like to see this in a first reading or something else.
Any questions, Scott?
I mean, it sounds like it makes sense, and it's going to be an administrative win in terms of simplifying things. You said of the 59, there are 29 units with appreciation of 6% or CPI. It seems strange that anyone would choose CPI in that situation, so are they all basically picking the highest number?
It's usually whichever's less, those deed restrictions, 6% or CPI, whichever's less. So in those cases,
We might go to a new deed restriction.
they might end up at the new deed restriction. 2022 was an 8%, so that was the winner year for those folks, I suppose.
Okay. So, I mean, this is also an incentive to get some updates to the deed restriction
Correct.
process.
Yeah.
Do we see have we done any studies on affordability? Just because if that rate is going up from CPI to 3%, do we have any issues with increasing the price of the stock moving forward? It doesn't seem like it's alarmingly significant, but.
I think I don't think so is the short answer. If you look at the past, if Karen scrolls up a little bit in the memo, and I'm sorry, it goes over page 19 and 20. But if we look at the, 2019 was a 1.8%. So that's what folks' homes appreciated at. But then all of a sudden, 2022, they appreciated at 8%. So from an affordability standpoint, there's a lot of fluctuation just as is as to what's happening with market forces, as to whether the units are staying affordable or not. So the 3% over time might actually be the more affordable option to keep them affordable.
Is it the case that almost all deed restrictions say whichever is lower? And so very few of our houses would have gone up to 8%.
Correct.
We don't have any that would do 8.
You wouldn't
No.
know. 6% would have been the max.
I hope we don't see 8 again, ever.
That's, that's a scary number in that context.
There's 18 units that use just CPI.
Just CPI.
So there
Oh.
are 18 units.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah. And they might opt to go to the 3%, because then they know for sure that that's what they're getting.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeffrey?
What if we enter a period where it's stagflation, recession, 5 years where the long bond's back at 0.42 or 0.46%, and all of a sudden we've got a great giveaway where non-compounded we're giving people 15% on their money. It seems like this is a very optimistic scenario where everything goes great, everything appreciates, but in the real world, I'm just a skeptic.
My understanding is that APCHA has never had anyone lose money on their home. Is that correct?
That's
We've
correct.
always maintained at least what they've paid for the unit, even if we haven't given them any appreciation. So I suppose there could be a situation where that happens, what you're describing, and
In 2007 and 2008, when the market went bust, that Burlingame was, one, I believe, was the first, it just got done. When people bought there, everything started going down. They did not gain appreciation for over a year. But their prices went down. But because they bought it at a certain price, if they had to leave, we sold it at that price they bought it for. We did not lower their price. But they gained no appreciation for a few years, or for at least a year. So this is something that at least gives them a little bit of a comfort level that they're gonna be getting a certain amount of appreciation. We also understand that down the line, it could be that we're the city or the county or APCHA or whatever, we might have to start to buy, to keep these in the same category, we might have to start buying down some and subsidizing some of the units for sale. Because eventually you're gonna get to a point where it's gonna keep going up and up, then you're gonna have to say, well, we're gonna buy it down to this. So it could be that down the line, that's what's gonna end up having to happen. Right now, it's not the case, but it could be down the line.
let's hope.
So over the last 20 years, the annual average is 2.49%, and over the last 40 years, it's 2.8. So, I mean, we're not talking about a huge windfall. I do like getting the additional or the new updated deed restriction. One thing that I like we've talked about affordability. We've talked about the affordability study that's coming. We've obviously talked about capital reserves a lot. I sort of wonder, is this something I think that if there's going to be an incentive for people to do this, I think maybe saying, and if you're part of an HOA, you have to have a capital reserve study in the last 5 years. I don't know, right? Or pick a number, but.
Do you mean to be part of the switch?
To be part of this, to take advantage of this and gain some additional appreciation, you have to demonstrate that your HOA is maintaining your building, you're aware at least of what your capital deficiencies are, and that you're monitoring it. I mean, for most, I think with the ones that we have done, combined with the large, all of the large HOAs that already have these done, I mean, you're going to get most people already have these, and for the few that don't, I mean, this could be you know, this could be the carrot to help them get it done.
Lobby the HOA
Yeah.
effectively on our behalf.
Right. Well, because it's like, hey, look, yes, you know, we could identify some problems by doing this, but you know, we have the offset of maybe some increased appreciation. Just an idea.
I mean, my only concern with that is that we're asking the owner, we're incentivizing the owner to do it on behalf of the HOA, and there's kind of a stakeholder mismatch, because in a lot of cases, it's not the owners that are in charge of whether or not the HOA did those studies. And so we've kind of put the owner in a precarious position.
If they're an owner today, they have a vote as to whether or not that happens today.
Right.
And we're not talking about a huge expense, right? I mean, you know, APCHA paid for all of these the last time that we did them.
Right.
Personally, I mean, I would be in favor of doing another round of that. To say, yes, you can opt in, and hey, by the way, we're doing one additional session where, you know, if you want to have a capital reserve study, we'll pay for it. I mean, I think that's because for the people who have already done this and are already managing it, it's sort of an acknowledgement of, you know, job well done. Anyway, that's just a thought. Any parting thoughts?
On the CPI?
Yeah.
I mean, I think clarity always helps in our program. It has sort of bigger dividends for transparency and those kind of things. I think is helpful too. You know, I have long said over the years, I think we're going to reach the point that Cindy was talking about needing to sort of buy down the cost for some units. I've encouraged the county's exploration of AI tools to maybe figure out which land use approvals in the past have been tied to, you know, assigning categories and things like that for affordable housing units. That might help with identifying how to adjust those. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. I definitely think, you know, the bulk of the people who are in the program are like, wow, I could have gotten an extra % over the last 10 years of my ownership. Like, that would have been great, you know? So I don't think that there's a real downfall to it.
Would this be retroactive?
No, folks would have to sign a new deed restriction, and then it would take effect from there on out.
But it would go at the price that their house is at the time they go under new deed restriction. So that's a plus too.
Yeah.
That is a plus.
And then you would also start off with the new 10% capital improvements as well. So to me, there's a lot of pluses to going under an updated deed restriction by taking advantage of this 3%.
Okay.
Just a quick question, because I know we've got Tom on the line here. Are there any legal barriers to us implementing something like what Carson suggested in putting kind of a tag on this deed restriction incentive that asks if whether or not the owner has an HOA that's done any sort of HOA study? Does that run us into any legal issues, Tom?
Tom, you're on mute.
I think as he starts figuring this out, I think administratively it would be hard to manage from a staff's perspective.
Okay, that was my next question,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it would just be on an HOA basis, right?
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Yes.
Okay, so in the absence of a direct conflict with the deed restriction, I think you're on safe ground,
Absence of a
if that answers the question.
Yes.
In other words, the regulations supplement what's in the deed restriction. So if you don't have a conflict, you can apply the regulations. We've always said in the past that where there's a direct conflict between a deed restriction and the regs, the deed restriction applies, but otherwise you can enforce the regulations.
I guess just so that's on the record, question to staff, what would that look like in terms of barriers on your end if we were to tag that as part of the process?
I think what Carson said, I think it would be administratively another step to go through, but I think if it's done on an HOA by HOA basis, once we know whose HOAs have done it, it's easier. I think offering up another round of capital reserve studies makes it even easier, and allows potentially some homeowners to put some pressure on their HOAs to go through with a study that they might not have done the last time around.
Yeah. Do we have budget for that?
We can always go for a 2027 budget. I'm not sure. We might have some money to do it in 2026. I don't have that answer right now, but we could always get it for the future.
I mean, I would be in favor of, I think the last time we did it, we sort of opened it up, I think, for, everybody in APCHA. I mean, make it the first 10 HOAs and then we can reassess, or, so we have a defined cost if we know what the expense would be. And then we just get, right, the value there is that once the capital reserve studies are completed, then, the HOAs, they're aware, right? And it breaks it down of how short is your reserve budget? What should you increase your dues to? It's very user-friendly output that we get back. And, the end result is ultimately the program benefits, because we have homeowners that are aware of and taking care of issues before they become unmanageable emergencies, expensive emergencies. So.
And I think we'll have to do some digging on our end, whether we have to go out for an RFP again or whether we can just rehire who we hired and kind of those pieces. So
Yeah.
we can't turn it on tomorrow. It's going to take a little bit of legwork on our end.
But I think because we did 20% roughly of the ownership units is what we got.
I think so.
Isn't that right? We got about 20%, but that 20% of the ownership units that we got the studies for did not include all of the large. None of the Burlingame, no Centennial, right? None of the big professionally managed HOAs. If an HOA has a professional manager, they're going to have a capital reserve study.
Exactly.
Because the manager has a fiduciary duty to do that. So I think it would help us get those stragglers that, may already have them done.
Exactly. We can also suggest that we tie the capital reserve, anything we look at down the road over the next few meetings, capital reserve wise, to what you're suggesting as well.
Okay.
So if it's not this that gets tied to it, we have other things that we can.
Okay.
Would it be, in terms of staff's request for us to make approvals to these changes today? Would it be?
Staff is just requesting whether you would like to see this at a first reading or not at a future meeting.
Okay.
So, it can always come back for another discussion at first reading, and then there's still a second reading for even more public comment and discussion. So, nothing
You're not committing to anything.
you're not committing to anything. You're just deciding whether you think it should move forward to a first reading, and actually seeing some proposed verbiage.
Awesome.
I do think it should move forward to a first reading, and I think anything that delivers better transparency, better understanding, and more awareness about our program is a step forward.
Great. Is that board consensus?
Yeah, I think
So, yeah.
we've got the board's consensus.
Karen is going to get this back up. Thanks, Karen. Before I even switch there. We're going to switch to page 21, if you don't mind, Karen. So the second one that we're going to talk through tonight is the removal of the longest work history from our tenant selection process for APCHA managed rental units. So just to step back for a sec, for APCHA managed rental units, which means it's Aspen Country Inn, Truscott Phase 1 and 2, are APCHA managed rental properties. For those units, we have a longest work history currently process that we follow. We've sort of talked about this with you all over the past probably 2 or 3 years. Staff is recommending that we remove this because it is very inefficient. and ineffective at renting these units in any sort of timely manner. You know that we have had tax credit units open for a while, but it takes us a lot longer to rent non-tax credit units trying to work through this. In the memo, there's a little bit of some history of how we came to this process. APCHA used to use a wait list from 1994 to 2005. The wait list was also found to be very inefficient because we would spend weeks calling, trying to find out if people were still interested in the units, and just going down the list and going down the list to finally find someone. And so it was in 2006, the APCHA regulations were amended, and the wait list was eliminated, and we attempted for this process. This process is also proving to be inefficient. And so APCHA staff is suggesting that we go to a sign up. Everyone gets one chance, and we kind of lottery it off. But everyone has an equal one shot for that unit. We know who's actually interested in that unit, and we can do it that way. So that's what staff is proposing. I will say one thing, sorry Kelly, I forgot. Aspen Country Inn still has a senior priority, so we're not advocating for that senior priority to go away. That senior priority at Aspen Country Inn will still trump everything. So
I'm just wondering about the mechanics of that, of how this would work. So ostensibly someone's interested in finding a rental, they're just getting notifications from you that say sign up for this Truscott Unit 302. Lottery's going to be on this date, and you have a window of period of time to add your name in the hat. Okay, and so they would have had to sort of contact you to figure out how to learn about rentals.
Correct.
As opposed to contacting you to learn about rentals and then getting on a, like, applying.
Correct. So right now, the emails go out Friday afternoon saying what is available for rent. There would be a window in that, just like a sales lottery ownership sign up for when you bid. There'd just be that for rental. You would have, whether it's 5 days, I haven't drafted it yet, to sign up to enter the lottery for that. We'd run the lottery, let's say the following Wednesday. I'm making this up right now, and then we'd notify the winner. And
so they're pre-qualified at that point?
No, you don't qualify until after the fact. So there still could be some trickle down, but we do not think it is prudent to have renters or proposed tenants qualify pre being awarded a unit, because each unit has a different category, has different functions to it, that it's very hard to do that before we know exactly where they're going.
But they would know, I shouldn't sign up for a category 1, I should only sign up for category 4.
Because the ad itself will have what the maximum household income isn't. As long as you're under this, you can go ahead and try for this unit. So they would, and we still get people who sign up for it that are over income. But then you just say, well, I'm sorry, but you're over income, and then you just go to the next person on the list. So.
Longest work history is also very aggravating for the applicant, because they have to go back and find documents which they may not have even thought about in 20 years. So it's a lot of work on both ends. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say this is always a sticking point with the county commissioners. I think it's fine to prep it and put it on a first reading, but I would bring this back before I leave. And just so you know, and Jeffrey, you can follow up as well, to get our board's input on it.
It's interesting because a lot of what we hear is that individuals that have been in the community for a long period of time know about Centennial and Castle Ridge and all these random scattered units all around town, and they know how to get on a wait list if Centennial has a wait list, or Castle Ridge. And the folks that are brand new to town don't know any of those things yet. They don't know who to call, and so we're their first phone call, and we usually just tell them here's a sheet of 10 different phone numbers. Good luck. You're not eligible for our housing because it goes to the person with the longest work history. And so I think there is some thought that, okay, APCHA's units should be that first stepping ground for folks new to town. And then once you've established yourselves for a little bit, you know a little bit about how town works and all the different landlords and kind of how to, more word of mouth. So just another point to kind of, another contrary point, I guess.
I would just throw in here, I think originally APCHA was designed to be kind of a bridge to the free market. And so the end of that sentence you just said used to end with, and eventually they'd be able to buy a home.
Yeah.
And that I think what we need to balance here is what we hear loudly from the community, which is when we change anything related to this, we're going to get a lot of pushback from a lot of very vocal locals. With what's needed for the program to be sustainable and efficient. And so I'm wondering, I mean, in this background, we've identified that efficiency and vacancy for extended period of time was the impetus. Are there any other things that are leading to this kind of regulations change, or is that?
No, I mean, that's it. It is just become an ineffective, inefficient way to rent. We're just sitting on units as we go through people trying to find. And so someone might say, oh, I've been here 25 years, but then when push comes to shove, they can't come up with the documentation. But we've gone through that whole period trying to find them. So then we have to go to what we're presuming is the next highest based upon what they've said.
And then, you know, they don't like it when they can't prove it, and they see that as APCHA being obstructionist and difficult. It's like, well, everybody knows I've been here 20 years. It's like, okay.
Yeah, ask Spider Savage,
You still need to
right?
tell me. So it can be frustrating for everybody.
Okay. And so, I mean, I just want to put on the record, so we have evidence and experience that we are, even in the presence of these people who make those claims, we still don't have enough people applying and qualifying for the units, and they're being sat vacant. So that's decreasing the efficiency.
Go through the process trying to get to someone, yes.
Okay.
Can you request a, what do they call it, the tax summary?
They most often don't have their
That far
location of
back.
employment, so we don't know what it was or where it actually was. So they don't often have like the business name associated with it.
Oh, just your text
Transcripts.
transcript.
They used to.
They don't, they are so secretive now. You don't even see the person's name on it. You see like the last three letters of their last name, something like that. And then all the employers are basically numbers. So it's like, well, who is this? And then they have to kind of tell you, well, this is kind of who it was. But it used to be that way. We used to say, go down, and it used to be free. And we'd send everybody down to the Social Security office down in Glenwood. They'd come back, and you could read it and everything. Then they started charging. Now they don't do any of that anymore. And if you ask for it, everything is, well, who is this? You don't know who it is. So it's that has changed over the years by asking for that.
Interesting. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just inefficiencies and units sitting vacant is not what we're looking for. So I think we should move it forward. I think there will be comments from the city and from the county. So I think we should move it forward, and with that explanation.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's I approve. I agree, and also we should be prepared for communicating around it and making sure that we are being very clear that this isn't about taking anything. It's about providing a better and more efficient service to the community. It's about equity. It's about making sure that APCHA stays sustainable.
Yeah.
Just real quick, Bethany, if is that all you have?
Yeah.
Okay. One more regulation change I just wanted. Christine sent an email asking about. So we've had the we had the public comment the last meeting just about there was I think a registered sex offender that was living close to families and kids and parks, and that HUD does not allow anyone that is a registered sex offender to live in a HUD property. And so the question was posed Is that something that the board wants to undertake? So, two questions. Is that something we want to look at? And then I think maybe the first question on that is to Tom, if there are any legal considerations around enacting a policy like that. And then obviously the discussion is rentals and ownership, and then the complications of if somebody is an owner.
Tom, can I speak quickly first? Just
Sure,
Carson.
go right ahead.
Just so
No.
the board knows, we do run a sex offender check on any of APCHA tenants at move-in. So we run it once at move-in, and that is indicative of whether someone can move in or not, the results of that. So we do that for our APCHA managed rentals. I have a feeling other landlords, from what I've heard, run a similar check for rental units throughout the inventory. So I think you might be able to remove rental from your conversation moving forward. Again, we do it once at move-in. It's not an annual requirement, just so you all know.
This is all occupants of the space, not just people on the lease?
Anyone that's signed on the lease. So the only folks that wouldn't be would be minor children. We would not run the background check on those folks.
Tom?
So I think it's viable for consideration. I would expect that something like this, legal issues will come up as the, when we get into the language, precise language and who it applies to and when, and the exact requirements. There could also be questions about whether it's appropriate to single out one type of criminal violation when there could be other kinds of violations that can be injurious to the health and welfare and safety of people. But those are details we can address if the board wants to proceed with this in a, as a policy matter to be implemented, when we drill down into the details.
And some of what staff was talking about too is financial crimes might be, as Tom was saying, just as differently bad for the program. But what do you choose to pick and choose from? And then for some of our applicants who haven't spent much time in the United States, we're not looking worldwide at their home countries. And so it does open up like can of worms as we start down this path as to did APCHA miss something at point of qualification, and what does that liability look like for us, which again, Tom can speak to more, but but we can talk about it. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I think where we'll start is what HUD is doing and why, and we might as well piggyback on the work they've done in this. We can, I think, safely assume that they've done legal review for adopting these rules, and that would may be very helpful as we analyze it.
Kelly?
Yeah, I would say, I think there was some perspective from the commissioners that, living in APCHA is a privilege, and that they would be amenable to a more detailed conversation about this.
Scott?
Just because of that most recent comment about already doing this check with rentals, is there justification for why we're not doing it in the other side of things, or what would that look like from staff's perspective?
Justification was probably 7 years ago we started doing background checks for our APCHA managed units. We thought it was prudent to do that. Most HOAs, from my understanding, at least they used to have provisions about certain whether you could or could not be a sex offender in a community. And so I think we were sort of relying on that more or less. I can't speak to all of the HOAs though and whether they have those provisions in them. But we just have to think through requirements to force the sale of a home, if you know, it's easy to not let someone into the program because of that. It's a lot harder if it happens once they're already an owner, and what that forced sale looks like through a compliance standpoint and a hearing officer and then pipeline down. So, but we can start with what HUD's doing, and whether we're ready for February or not, we can bring it back.
Yeah, I think that's a great spot to start, is just piggyback what HUD is doing.
Yep.
Like Tom said, they've probably done their homework, and if we can just steal that, I think that's worth discussing.
And just so you all know, you'll see me again for the February meeting. I think we have two other regulation changes to kind of talk through in a similar manner. And then the March meeting will bring first reading for whichever ones that you all would like to advance to first reading. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks, Kelly. I'll miss you.
Maybe I'll see you in West
I know, but I'll miss you on the soccer sidelines.
We're gonna try to go to the Yankees Red Sox game on June 25th.
Oh, maybe I'll see you there.
Okay, we are going to jump back up to data report 2025 year in review and data dashboard preview with Emily.
So excited for them to see this. I'm so excited.
Okay. Hi, Emily Maynard, APCHA Housing Policy Analyst. Let me just pull up my. Yeah, I will need to share. Okay, so I just put a brief presentation together with this because the meat of it is now really going to live in the dashboard that I made, and the dashboard hasn't been published yet. I thought I would walk you through it in this draft version, which is kind of on the back end, but you should see what it will look like. And that way, if you have some feedback for me, I can take that into account before I do publish it. I think most of the info, or all of the info, would have been in your memo that's in this. So just a quick rundown of 2025, what's going on. This is the same info you received at this presentation last year. So just a quick APCHA by the numbers and how our inventory has changed in the past year or so. We'll look at some application, bid and lottery stuff, a little bit of property management, and then sales, and then we'll dive into that dashboard. So in your packet, I mentioned that these numbers are sort of constantly changing. I think since I put this presentation together, the numbers have changed. So it's just a snapshot in time, right? I think maybe significant things that I mentioned that happened with inventory this year was the hospital's housing at the Beaumont Inn has been torn down for redevelopment. So those 24 units are no longer occupied, and their estimate is that it will take 2 years for them to rebuild their newly developed whatever they're putting in there, and that will be 68 units. So they're increasing the number of units that they have there. So those were removed from this inventory total. And then we had a couple additions from mitigation, I believe 2 employer-owned and 2 ownership units near Hunter Creek, and 2 rental units on the east side or west side of Aspen. And then the White Elephant Hotel that's going in on Main Street, they're providing 3 new affordable housing units, those are not included in these numbers yet because they're not occupied yet. But that'll be coming online next year. So just goes to show these things are always changing. And then the other thing is I've been working rather hard at trying to track down some of the sort of missing scattered site ADU, CDU, EDU things. And so these numbers will probably change as I update that and that project. Hopefully comes to conclusion in the next couple months. So, yeah.
I'll go. For RROs, do we know the distribution of incomes in those households?
I did not look at that
I'm curious if it's like,
level of detail.
you would just assume they're above category 5, but that's not necessarily true, right?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What are the categorizations for those white elephant units that are coming online? Do we know yet?
I believe they're category 2, but again, one of the changes that the board made is that if they're employer-owned units, then as long as a person is working full-time, if there happen to be a higher category, they can still move in even though they can't charge a higher rent. This allows them to put where their need is into those units. So I believe but I do believe they're category 2.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'll dive a little bit more into these in the dashboard because it's interactive and you can sort of hover over and see the totals exactly. But APCHA processed quite a few applications last year. I just selected 2025. So as you can see, every year we process quite a few seasonal rental applications for the Burlingame Seasonal and Meralt. And then I think the other notable thing about this is you'll notice that the LIHTC units make up the majority of applications that are denied. And I think you're pretty hip to the fact that those units can be really difficult to fill because of how low those income limits are, and that would be why those applications are denied, as people are over the income limit. Just some high-level things about our bids and lottery stats. The average year's work history in 2025 was lower than our sort of like all years average, which is 16 years of work experience. So that was a little lower. We averaged 37 bids per unit. Some units, will get a ton of bids and some will not get very many. And that all just depends on sometimes the unit's more desirable or it's a category that a lot of people fall under. So I don't know entirely what the rhyme or reason is always behind the distribution. I think that staff would say that it does seem, since the removal of the $5 for bids, that bids have increased. And I think I ran the numbers and put them in the memo that bids were up by 100 or so bids in 2025 for I think fewer sales or fewer lotteries. So I don't know if that we can entirely say it's tied to that because, like I said, there are sometimes units that people find really desirable and there'll be a ton of bids on it no matter what.
I'm just noting that 13-year work history average.
Yeah.
In reference to our previous conversation about eliminating work history from the lottery process, and I'm wondering if there's some inconsistency here. Would you say that that's the 13 years represents kind of the longest work history applicant on average? Where would that fall in this?
Well, these ones would be for ownership units.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it would fall. I think that there's a span of people bidding on our units from having people will put their name in the hat even if they don't have their 4 years work history, just in case. Those people are unlikely to to win.
This has changed dramatically since we took out the $5 bid requirement. This has changed dramatically because we took out the $5 per bid requirement. We get people who, we get single people going for 3 bedrooms because they know they don't have to pay the $5. So our amount of people applying for our units has grown quite a bit. So just to let you know.
Yes, that was an unintended
Yeah.
consequence, which Pam is finding quite irritating. So we may have to revisit that with you again, but yeah.
So we've seen an alarming increase
Yeah,
in bids.
yeah.
Well, and I would say too that, I mean, historically, this has kind of been high teens, I would say, right? I mean, that's.
I
doesn't
believe
that-
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
17, 18, 19 is kind of where I think on average it's been. I think we had, didn't last year we had to just there were a bunch of units that turned over, just kind of, I don't know, I seem to remember just there being a whole bunch of units that just kind of turned over for no real reason. Like obviously we had Burlingame 3 that came
Right.
online in 24.
Pretty much last, yeah,
Yeah.
between 24 and 25, yeah.
Didn't we also reject changing the rules to like, get rid of long historic history?
Yes.
Mhm.
Cool.
You can thank the county for that too. I argued against that. I mean, like, for changing it.
And we'll look at this some more on the sales tab of the dashboard, but I just threw this in here as sort of a placeholder to say it did seem like there was quite a bit of turnover in our ownership units this year. There are not as you see, very many Category 1 units, so there's many years where none of them sell. And then the other thing to note is some RO units are sold by owner and not through APCHA, which is why in the previous slide the bids for RO units was really low, but in this slide there's a fair number of sales of those units. Yeah, otherwise I think this looks probably as you would expect. Most of the sales were of Category 4 units, with 19 in the past year. And the property management team is busy as ever, processing maintenance requests at APCHA managed properties. You can see they do quite a bit of that, and this is sort of the breakdown. People will say other if they don't feel like their request falls into those categories, but there is a lot of make ready, so that indicates turnover, I guess, and fixing appliances. I think that probably goes along with any rental unit. And then I'll jump in. And once I do publish the dashboard, the link will be on the new APCHA website for anyone to look at, check out, interact with, and I can be sure to send that link to you all as well.
Thank you. Do we have, I mean, is it easy to pull together maybe sort of these same statistics, but annually over the last 5 years? I mean, is that, I don't want to create a bunch of extra work, but I mean, is that something
See the
that's-
trend.
Yeah, just to see the trend of you know, what are we seeing for number of applications? What are we seeing for number of years worked?
I think
Yeah, just
yes, especially past 5 years, because that's how long we've had Home Trek. So it's much easier to track over the past 5 years than historically for a lot of this stuff. But I think that's why I wanted to create this dashboard was transparency. So if people were interested in this information, they could access it, public information, but also because I've built in some interactivity where you can compare year to year over the past 5 years. And I'll point out to you what things I've been able to do that for. I've used like filters basically. And then there's a couple items that I think I could in the future build that same thing into so that you could see that for more than just what I have so far.
yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I've created sort of like a home page for this dashboard that has some basic information about APCHA. And then the top panel that you'll see is like a navigation bar that will take you to different tabs with specific data about those things. So this home page gives you some of this basic inventory info that I just talked about with you in both the panel across the top and then in this chart here. And everything in Tableau is interactive, so if you hover, you get more information. And I can add information to that if you all think that there's things that are missing. Feel free to point out that if there's stuff that you'd like to know more about. But in general, this first page is pretty basic. There's not a lot of going on except for these basic numbers, and then the income and asset limits, those are set every year in April, so I can update it when we get new income and asset limits for 2026. But this is just sort of to give people the idea of here's how I fall into a category. I'm a one-person household and I make however much money. And then I just built in things like this. If you prefer the table view that I showed you in the presentation, you can toggle on and off, things like that.
I was going to ask about that toggle.
And anything on here, if you hover over, it'll basically like give you more information. So click for table view is what it says. So we'll come up here. Hover says click to navigate, so I will navigate to the sales tab. And this is the one place where I did do some like historical digging in our sales data to give us some trends beyond the 5 years. And that's what you see in the sales price trend up here on the right, and then in the bottom, the number of sales over time. So the year filter over here, right now I have 2025 selected, and that's for these average sales prices that I just showed you in the presentation. But to your point, Carson, you could click the filter and it changes the graph to show you over all years, here's what the averages are, or you can say, no, I want to compare what 2024 looked like, and I can toggle between 2024 and 2025 and compare that way.
Can you click all again?
Will you click all again? I'm just noticing an inconsistency in what I would assume was going to be a linear relationship there. What's going on with category 1 selling on average for higher than category 2?
Yeah, so as you'll notice, that's averaged over 2 sales.
Gotcha.
Whereas category 2 here is average over 57 sales. So I think it's just because that average is over those 2 sales, one of those units may have cost a little bit more. Some of these category 2 units maybe have turned over more or less. I don't know exactly without like looking into that unit and its history in this sales data, but I think the fact that there were only 2 category 1 sales in the past couple years is what throws that average off like that.
R value. I noticed that there was a disclaimer on the home tab that included where, and can we go back there? There was something that said like where and how this data was kind of potentially inconsistent and constantly being qualified or clarified.
Yeah.
I think that there might be room for that on the next tab for the same question that I just had, but I mean, probably not important
To clarify.
to clutter things there.
I can certainly make a note and see how I can fit it in, yeah.
I would just hate to have someone intentionally making decisions on sale price based on that data, because it is misleading a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the sale prices can be really interesting. So I don't think a disclaimer is a bad idea, right? So here's 2022, and that same sort of anomaly happens with these category 3 units. And part of that, right, is that units, as they turn over, can, you know, the sale price gets reset and then they're receiving an appreciation on a higher price. So units that turn over a lot, those prices are going to increase more quickly than a unit that has had one owner for the past 40 years.
Makes sense.
What is the gap in the sales price trends? that
Oh,
starts
yeah,
around
so
2006?
one of them is including RO sales and one is excluding RO sales. And then I just made a note, as you see that they're aligned until 2001, which is when I think the RO category was introduced. And then they start to diverge a little bit. And I just separated them because I thought that those RO sales could really skew the data because they're cost so much more. So that was why I differentiated between the ones that are inclusive of RO and not. And same thing with the bottom. The blue line excludes RO sales and the green line includes them. So this tab, as we mentioned, these application data. So I think this was specifically what you were referring to, Carson. So this selected right now is 2025, what I showed you. So we could, you know, compare 2024 to 2025. It's actually like fairly similar. For whatever reason, it looks like there were more seasonal rental applications. No, pretty similar. But you could look back and compare 2023 to those numbers. We'd have to ask Sandra maybe what was going on with the LIHTC units that year and all those applications that were received. But my hope is that being able to compare years like this does provide a little bit of transparency about sort of the APCHA behind the numbers.
This is cool.
And then I just pulled compliance numbers basically from the presentation that Jackie gave you. So those are probably not particularly new, although I did pull this out of HomeTrek, and that was just since HomeTrek began in 2020, the number of compliance actions taken, pretty significant amount. So I think it shows that APCHA is doing their due diligence, looking into things when they come up.
Can you just define compliance action?
Yeah, so this might be, there was a complaint and it got investigated. Maybe there was a notice of investigation sent out, a notice of violation. Those would each be an action.
But this isn't, Jackie has to do 200 investigations every year, right?
I don't know how
I don't think so.
many
I just would
investigations.
send her some flowers.
I would imagine that we get quite a few complaints, and I've talked
Right.
to Jackie about how we can better consolidate that info, because right now, you know, maybe Karen gets a call on the phone with a complaint that she passed along to Jackie. Somebody can submit an anonymous complaint online. Somebody can send an email. So it's coming in from all these different ways. And so Jackie and I have talked about how to maybe better condense that information on HomeTrek so the reporting on that gets better.
And we sent NOIs or NOVs to the people who didn't participate in the biennial affidavit as well. So
That would be a compliance.
that's
So
that's a compliance action.
compliance
So that's
action.
probably a big chunk.
Right.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how many compliance actions don't turn into actual workload for the compliance officer to get an idea about just general vibes.
I think most of the complaints we get, we find that they're fine. that the person or the entity, because sometimes somebody's mad at somebody and they say, well, blah, blah, blah is not working, and sometimes we'll get the same complaint constantly, even though we've done our research. We know that the person's in compliance and stuff, and so sometimes Jackie looks at that and says, well, they just provided me with documentation, so I'm not gonna ask the person to provide it again.
Okay, but all of that's getting tallied here. Got it.
So the bids you'll see they're divided with a filter like the other data, but these lotto averages and where the bidders have self-selected they're moving from, those I just included all your data and have not yet like filtered out by year, but that's potentially another area where I could break that down. So this where bidders are, living when they bid on a unit, that was just all the years, all the data I could find in Home Check added up. And I think last tab is this, and I just added a map of APCHA properties. I think the things that we kind of talked about that we noticed as we were looking at it was really how many, I think someone said, look at all the ski in, ski out places in Aspen, but really it kind of incredible how concentrated the number of units are that are in Aspen proper. But then also that there are units spread out all over the county, and you can hover over the dot and see there's a Starwood Ranch, so that would be like a CDU, a caretaker unit. At Starwood, W/J, you can see there's 65 units there, and the size of the dot corresponds to that number of units at that property. You can see here, Trescott 2, some of the bigger dots, there's Hunter Creek and Centennial. And I just thought that'd be fun. I'm kind of a visual person, so I like to be able to see it, so I threw it in. And that's that.
Can we make a map like that for the available units? I mean, I feel like a lot of us increasingly are digital or visual people, and one piece of feedback I've heard from the community is like the idea of going onto a website to check text-based notifications about availability is, I don't know, maybe it's just that it's not as fun or not as visual, but also I've heard less accessible. If we just had like a map where you'd get a pop-up star that you could click on and that little window about the description came out, might drive more participation and solve some of the vacancy stuff. Just an idea.
Sometimes we are unaware of how many units that like Castle Ridge might have, or Centennial, or some of these other smaller places. Because since they only send somebody or they only tell somebody, I'm offering the unit to you, you can go ahead and apply now. So that's kind of how that works. Somebody has to be offered a unit in order to actually make an application in our system. So they have to actually talk to that property manager first. And a lot of times we don't know if they have any availability or not.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what I've got for you on data. I will just say that I will plan to continue updating this dashboard with new information yearly, and can take any feedback you have if there's something missing you'd like to see, or I can try to include it.
And so this will be on the website.
The link, there will be a link to it on.
It's held in Tableau, not on the thing. So
Right. That's great. I mean, I think this map right here to be able to look at specific projects and say, there's 84 units and they're mostly, category 2 and 3. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, I'd say just generally really grateful for all this hard work, Emily. It's really cool to be able to see some of this data, and I think that you know, we've had this discussion before. The more we can present the data, the more we can kind of get rid of all of these arguments that don't come from a place of factual. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. You are on our next agenda item, which is the grant, and as our final item, the grant program update.
Okay, this is more of a, I'd like to announce that the 2026 grant application is open. I've been receiving and approving applications already, so it's well underway and sort of business as usual as that goes. And then I provided you all just some information about, summary of what went on in the grant program last year. Tried to break it down for you so you could see that really the majority of applications are still for things like hot water heaters and windows. Average grant awarded last year was just over $5,000. There's sort of varying repair costs, and looks like we had a pretty even split between the 4 categories application-wise. And I'll just reiterate how grateful everybody that I talked to is for this program. And I think that the only other thing that that I had for you all was with the increase in funding for this year, we at APCHA talked about expanding to category 5, and I wanted to get your input. If you want to continue 1 through 4, that's fine, or we could expand to category 5 and everything else would remain the same. But that is really up to you all.
Remind me where we stand with mobile homes on this?
Mobile homes,
Are they still prohibited?
No.
they had previously been not allowed to participate in the program, and that was because they had trouble getting people to do work on their homes. A lot of them. They are currently in the 2026 guidelines still excluded, but I'm also open to amending that, especially if, it does sound like Northwest COG might be a really good organization that would help with those sort of repairs. I think the caveat for us with those is, do we put money into mobile homes that really should just be replaced? And how do where's the line between putting money into a mobile home that we should buy and replace and fixing up the ones that need it? So I'm also open to hear your
Well, I'd
feedback.
encourage further exploration of that, particularly for income qualified mobile home owners. Because even though they're RO, we know that there's folks living in them who would fall in category 2 or 3 or 4. Thanks.
I'm just looking at this pie graph, or pie chart. Would you say that by percentage, category 1 is the highest application pool that we're getting, or rather the highest delivery of these grants? Because I know we have a really low number of Cat 1. And I see that they're the lowest number on this chart, but I'm wondering if you have any visibility about what the percentages look like in terms of number of grants awarded compared to total number in the stock in that category.
It's certainly something I could look into and get back to you. I do think that this program is especially impactful for category 1 owners who are on those fixed incomes and really appreciate the help with these kind of repairs.
Yeah, I would just say that if we do see any sort of discrepancy there, that we concentrate on lowering barriers and communicating with those residents before we start increasing accessibility to the higher income levels. I was listening to an interesting study last week that was done out of Holland where they were sending cash to people in a way that made it really easy for them to steal the cash. And it was all a study about which income group was more likely to return the money. And at first they found that it was the higher income that returned more money. And so the initial results said that, oh, well then the wealthy people must be more generous. But they went back and they revisited their methodology, and they found out that actually a lot of the reason that the lowest income people weren't doing it is they didn't have time to go to the post office. And so that there's kind of a time inequity that happens, especially at that lowest level. And I know some people who are at that level who are working, 3-4 jobs. So maybe there's room for us to increase the percentage just with communication.
I think this matches our unit count. I mean, we have very few category 1 units. So, I mean, the bulk of our units, I think, are category 2, 3 is really that's where the chunk of them are. So the fact that we're, 15, 19, 29, I mean, as a portion of the inventory, that feels right.
I guess last thing I'd say is between 2024 and 2025, you went from a 40% denied to 12% denied. So I would say kudos to the team for efficiency in delivering these grants and for communicating the qualifications required to get the grant. And so it seems like we're on a good trend.
Yeah, I will say most people reach out and ask questions if they're unsure, so they're not submitting those applications if they're, they don't think that their project will qualify. So a lot of that is happening through email or over the phone, and then they know to go ahead and submit or to if the repair might not qualify, for instance, or something.
Are you passing people along to CORE as well in those conversations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I think CORE, especially this year, they said for folks who want to transition, because I sort of briefed them at the end of last year and said, it's a lot of hot water heaters and windows, and CORE doesn't give grants for windows, but they did give me an information sheet that I can share to people who are looking to get windows. And then they did say that if people are looking to go to tankless, that with a CORE rebate, the tankless water heater will be less than a regular water heater. So I think that's, there's a lot of benefit cost saving wise for those two.
I did find out, though, that if you have a gas hot water heater, it doesn't matter if you're going to tankless or not. CORE will not give you a grant
Oh, because it's already on
unless you
gas.
go from coal, or unless you go from gas into electricity, because I need one right now. So I found that out. But he also suggested that I talk to Black Hills, because Black Hills, going from a regular to tankless, they might give some type of a rebate. So that is one of, even though they will not come and work on mine, Black Hills won't, even though I pay Black Hills gas, because of the location of where my hot water heater is. There's 2 housing properties that they will not go to anymore.
But they
Twin
put 'em in
Ridge
the
is one
attic?
of them, and Wan Street is one of them, because you have to climb up this ladder into above the washer and dryer to get where where they place the hot water heater and the furnace. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
No.
Good luck, Cindy.
yeah. No.
There was one grant applicant who said they had to cut the door frame to get the water heater out.
Well, I've had to replace mine once before, so I know I can get one in.
Good. Thank you. And
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
that,
So just to be sure, consensus from you all is stay at category 1 to 4, or
Do some more research. Or
did we allocate all the money last year?
I allocated $443,000, which was the $400,000 budget, plus we had rolled over some from
Right.
the previous year. So, yes.
So we did.
I mean, my parting recommendation. I would leave it for now, particularly because I think you would want some space for going to the city and the county for additional funding as the capital reserve conversation progresses. And so, leaving that fund for the folks who probably need it most in their budget, I think would make the most sense right now until the other conversation develops.
Yeah, I would second that sentiment.
Okay.
Parting words of wisdom.
The only other question I'll ask for you all is, now that we're kind of business with usual with this grant program, do you want to continue to get updates like this, an informational memo in a packet once a year, that kind of thing? Do you have preference on how much or how little you want to be updated on the program?
I mean, I would just say, I think this is valuable. I would like to see trends of, like, with this too. So what are the trends of category ones, you know, last year, this year? I think your suggestion, percentage of, you know, how many applications versus how many in the inventory, you know, and then we're seeing windows trend up, we're seeing boilers, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think that type of stuff is helpful for the conversation, as Kelly said, as the capital reserve discussion ramps up, and you know, maybe there is discussion about, you know, expanding the program, or right, like we talked about earlier, maybe it's capital reserve studies, right? I mean, I think all of these different issues are sort of linked together, and the more data I think that we have, the more it helps us understand what's going on and make the case to the county and the city that pay for it.
Great, I can do
Scott?
that. Thank you.
I think you opened a can of worms with this dashboard thing. I mean, I'd love to see, I'd love to see more constant updated data as much as we can without taking away from your other workload.
Sure.
So, I mean,
Well, that's fun, so happily do that.
consider yourself tasked.
Yes, we could have a maintenance type tab on the dashboard once we have some trends to show, I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
And
you.
just thanks for the public outreach on this. It was already reported in the paper, so
Yeah.
people can apply. It's great.
All right, well, that concludes our agenda. Kelly, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I will move to adjourn my final APCHA meeting on Wednesday, January 21st.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Cindy?
Okay. Scott,
Yes.
Kelly,
Begrudgingly.
Carson,
Yes.
and John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
5:33, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.